welcome to your access point to Washington. I'm Aisha Tanzim. Violence continues in several Muslim countries around the world after an anti-Islam video was posted on YouTube dubbed in Arabic. In Libya on Tuesday, a violent mob attacked the U.S. Embassy in Benghazi, leading to the death of the U.S. Ambassador Christopher Stevens along with 3 other people. U.S. President Barack Obama has made it very clear that such attacks will not be tolerated.
The United States condemns in the strongest terms this outrageous and shocking attack. We're working with the government of Libya to secure our diplomats. I've also directed my administration to increase our security at diplomatic posts around the world. And make no mistake, we will work with the Libyan government to bring to justice the killers who attacked our people.
And now U.S. warships and drones are on their way to Libya to help find the killers of the U.S. ambassador. Muslim leaders around the world are asking for calm as some Muslim countries are bracing for further violence. Joining me in the studios to talk about all of these issues are Morgan Roach, who's an expert on Middle East, as Africa and transatlantic relations, and Ali Alfone, who's an expert on Iran. And Morgan, you're with the Heritage Foundation and you're with the Danish School of Strategic Studies, am I right?
Well, actually, nowadays I'm at the American Enterprise Institute.
Now you're with the American Enterprise Institute. Well, welcome both of you to Access Point. Now, here's my first question. We heard the U.S. President say such attacks will not be tolerated. We also heard Secretary of State Hillary Clinton say very clearly on a live broadcast, this movie is reprehensible. The U.S. has nothing to do with it. The U.S. government has nothing to do with it. So I'll start with you, Morgan. Is it still associated with U.S. in African and Middle Eastern and other Muslim countries?
Quite frankly, this video is irrelevant. It was produced in the United States. As offensive as it is, the United States, we guarantee the freedom of speech. And so the fact that Islamists in Egypt and the rest of the Muslim world are using this as an excuse to go and attack U.S. embassies is completely reprehensible. In Egypt in particular, the Islamists who attacked the U.S. embassy, quite frankly, were using this as a pretext to undermine U.S.-Egyptian relations. It's also an attempt to undermine the Muslim Brotherhood, who they view as not conservative enough. And quite frankly, this should not be tolerated.
Okay, thank you very much. And before I come to you, Ali, we have another guest joining us via Skype. Kamran Bukhari is a frequent guest on our show. He's with Stratfor, Vice President and Senior Middle East Analyst. Kamran, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Aisha.
Okay, now, Kamran, I'll come to you, but Ali, do you agree with Morgan? Is the video irrelevant?
Well, unfortunately, it has become a tool in the hands of a number of very, very radical elements who call themselves Muslims, who abuse the name of religion in order to advance a particular understanding of religion, and by the way, of course, also their political agendas. And they, as I see it, leave a very, very bad impression of how Muslims are in the international media. Muslims are good and decent people. They are not terrorists. Muslims are not assassins. Muslims are not arsonists. But unfortunately, this is the image and understanding that you get whenever you see pictures of terrorists attacking the U.S. ambassador in Libya. And it's very, very unfortunate that any case will be taken by the Islamists as an instrument.
Well, thank you. Kamran, you work on the strategy side of issues, and I want to ask you, first of all, what do you say when the guests say this video is irrelevant, it's being used in the hands of some extremist elements, and also that in Libya there are some reports that the attacks might have been pre-planned, especially since it was the anniversary of 9/11, and also some reports that one of Al-Qaeda's leaders, Al-Libi, was killed in a drone strike. Do you have any evidence? Have you seen anything, intelligence reports?
Aisha, I think that this is a complex issue. I'll address the first point. I largely agree with my colleagues here in the panel, but I want to say something, and that is that, what we think a reality ought to be, the fact of the matter is that it's not. Muslims should not be engaged in this kind of behavior. Ali's right about that. And the idea that this is reprehensible, yes, but it is a reality on the ground. And this is not the first time we're seeing, outrage turn violent on issues that, not just Islamists, but many Muslims around the world find, sacrilegious. I mean, look at what happened during the Muhammad cartoon controversy. And even if you go back to the 1980s when Salman Rushdie wrote Satanic Verses, we saw a similar outpour and outcry, and it led to violence. And so this is something that is bound to happen because of the underlying realities. The question is, how can it be managed and how can it be done, especially at a time when those in power, or at least approaching power, are Islamists. One of the panelists mentioned that there's the difference between the Muslim Brotherhood and the Salafis, who have their rivalry, and obviously the Muslim Brotherhood doesn't share the values of the Salafis. And even if you look at the Salafis, they're not a monolith. There are all sorts of Salafis. And some of them want to engage in mainstream politics, while others find democracy as un-Islamic. So this is the reality that we're dealing with. So if you have a movie like that, it's expected that this will be the outcome. You will see this kind of behavior. Is it reprehensible? Of course it is.
Yes.
There's no doubt about that. But
Okay.
it's a reality. Now,
Okay, Kamran, before we get to the second point, which we'll come back to, we want to introduce another guest who's just joined us via Skype, Imam Johri, who's the Director of Community Outreach for the Darul Hijra Islamic Center. He was the first Muslim chaplain installed at Howard University. Imam, welcome to our show.
Alhamdulillah, Assalamu alaikum, and it's excellent to be back with my good friend Imran.
Well, thank you very much. And I want to ask you, well, you joined us a little late and we were talking about whether this movie is irrelevant to the reaction and whether the movie has actually led to the violence has some relevance here.
Well, I think there are a number of key issues. First, the denunciation has been fairly universal, that this doesn't represent the attitude or the values of Islam, or for that matter, the Prophet Muhammad or the Quran. While saying that, I will remind people that Pew did a study and said that one of the issues, and I think Dalia Mughahid and the study they did with Gallup, that the problem for many people who are in the developing or underdeveloped world is that they feel that the West doesn't respect them and their values. And so things like the Quran or things like the Prophet Muhammad, if denigrated, are a proxy for those feelings about them personally. I'll give the
Okay, and I'll come back to you
example.
on this topic, but I want Morgan to add to it, and I also want Morgan for you to add to another point. Now, you mentioned
Sure.
about freedom of speech, and you mentioned that the movie is irrelevant, but there's another aspect to it. This movie was originally posted on YouTube in English back in June. Nothing happened. It was dubbed in Arabic, posted twice on YouTube. So somebody apparently was actually trying to get some kind of reaction out of it.
No, I agree. I mean, I think it's very coincidental that this movie was posted multiple times months before September 11th. I think this is a direct slap in the face of the United States in stating that here we are going to attack you on a very particular day that means a lot to many Americans. We're going to hurt you, and we're going to attack you in the most violent way possible.
The slap in the face of United States by whom? Because this movie apparently comes out of California by a guy that nobody has been able to find. The name seems to be a pseudonym.
Look, there are still a lot of facts that have yet to be seen.
Yes.
First reports are never accurate.
That's true.
And so I think we're trying to find out those facts right now, and we have a lot of questions that we need to ask. But the point is that this movie was out a long time beforehand, and that radical Salafists in Egypt used this video as a pretext on September 11th. I think it's inexcusable.
Okay, thank you. Kamran, now I want to come to you and the second point that you were trying to make. You heard Morgan. Nobody knows who posted the movie dubbed in Arabic and posted it again. A lot of those facts are not clear yet. The movie maker is in hiding. The cast and crew so far, according to CNN, have denounced the movie and said that they were misled about the script and that it was rewritten in editing. Again, we don't know yet. Some of the facts are still coming out. But Kamran, do you agree with Morgan that it might be an attempt by somebody to dub it to get exactly the kind of reaction that we're getting from around the world?
It's always possible, Aisha. You know, the sequence of events is at best very fuzzy. It's not really clear what happened from the time the movie first surfaced in the open sources on YouTube, and you know, how did it make its way to the point where it was dubbed in Arabic? Who was behind it? And I would also, you know, basically point to the origins, the production of the movie as well. What was the intent behind it? You know, clearly. By now, it's very, especially in the post 9/11 atmosphere, it's very clear that issues like these are very sensitive. I mean, they can easily rile up a crowd. And again, you know, they don't have to be Salafists. They don't have to be anybody else. They could just be, you know, your average Muslim who is very angry and their emotions have taken over their, you know, their senses, and they're engaged in morally reprehensible behavior, such as attacking the property of other countries, diplomatic posts, and the killing of diplomats. So it's really not clear, you know, what was the origin of the movie, what was the intent behind it. It's going to be some time before anybody can, you know, pull these pieces together and come out with some
out.
sort of
Okay,
explanation.
so let me ask Imam Johri, since he deals with the Muslim community a lot. Imam, please tell me, why do we see this varied reaction? You're sitting in US. A lot of other Muslim leaders that we've talked to in the US have had a very measured response. They've called the movie reprehensible, but they've also condemned the violence and asked for calm. And yet we see these kinds of mobs coming out on the street in a lot of Muslim countries. And this is not even the first time. This has happened before. Why is the different reaction in different geographical places?
Well, you know, first, there is a tremendous amount of illiteracy in many parts of the Muslim world, even though the first words of the Quran are Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq, read. And so a picture is worth 1,000 words. If people get riled up around a picture, probably there are many people who never even saw the documentary, so-called documentary. They're just responding to what the rumor is, that there's this defamation of Islam. But, you know, I also want to add one other element. In the United States of America, having freedom of speech, recognizing that as a social value, that we have other ways of applying pressure. People who have no other way to apply pressure wind up using violence, even sometimes against their own selves, to express their point of view. Where in America, we might have a boycott, we might write our congressman or senator, we might have a rally or demonstration or campaign on Facebook, because we're using the tools that we have as freedom of speech and democracy that perhaps they're not accustomed to using.
Or sometimes even just ignoring, like the US media did, the Florida pastor, and that seemed to have worked out. He kind of disappeared after his announcement of trying to burn the Quran. But Ali, I want to ask you, there are reports that in Tehran, about 500 Iranians chanting "Death to America" converged on the Swiss embassy, which is the de facto, since America doesn't have relationships with Iran, the Swiss embassy handles the diplomatic affairs. What kind of impact do you think this movie might have in Iran? Do you see any further violence?
Well, first of all, I have to say that it's quite interesting that it's only 500 so-called students staging this demonstration. There were thousands of Iranians demonstrating in front of the old US embassy, and they were burning candles on the occasion of September 11th. They were sympathizing with the victims of terrorism. They were not supporting the cause of terrorism. And the people in Iran, they have been victims of state terrorism for the past 33 years. for the past 33 years, the regime in Tehran has abused the name of religion in order to legitimize its dictatorship.
So you're saying these 500 people that gathered, the regime had something to do with it?
Well, I'm absolutely sure of it. And Iran is a country of 70-odd million people. It's only 500 people.
Okay.
So that, I think, is an important issue. And let me also tell you another thing. And it is about how to deal with this kind of crisis in the future. The Prophet himself, when he declared himself prophet, in the city of Mecca, there was a lady who would always throw trash at him whenever he was passing the apartment of this elderly lady. 6 days in a row, the lady would throw trash on the head of the Prophet. On the seventh day, there was no trash. And what the Prophet did was to knock on the door and go visit this elderly lady and asked her why there was no trash. And she said that she was ill, and he expressed that he was deeply sorry for that and helped her do some grocery shopping. At that moment, the lady who had been throwing trash on the head of the Prophet of Islam converted to Islam. What does this story tell us? This tells us that your reaction to insults, of course, also affects the way who have been insulting you.
You have been insulting.
Are Muslims doing that today? Are they following the example of the Prophet of Islam?
And we'll let our viewers answer that question for themselves. But Kamran, I want to point out something else to you, which is, according to the New York Times, the violence in Yemen came hours after a Muslim cleric, Abdul Majid al-Zindani, urged followers to emulate the protests in Libya and Egypt. And this particular person, al-Zindani, had been designated by the U.S. Treasury Department a global terrorist. So from a strategic and security point of view, how useful are such incidents for groups or people who are bent on violence?
Well, first of all, Abdul Majid al-Zindani is a prominent cleric in Yemen, and he has a very colored and checkered history. Yes, he is on the U.S. list as a supporter of terrorism, and he's been identified as someone who's very close to Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda. Ironically, he was also very close to the former president, Ali Abdullah Saleh, who was a U.S. ally at the same time. And not too long ago, and I guess it was the last election, he gave a fatwa saying that if people didn't vote for the president, then they were sinful. So it's really complicated, the backgrounds of these individuals. Obviously, he is trying to score political points. He's trying to take political advantage of the situation that erupted in Libya and Egypt. And of course, he's trying to build upon the vacuum that's been created with the departure of his ally, President Ali Abdullah Saleh. The Saleh faction has seen a steady decline since the exit of the president from the presidency. And incidents like these help his people or his faction to try and regain some ground that they've lost.
Okay, thank you, Morgan. Incidents like these, can they impact how the world views U.S. and how the U.S. views the world? We talk about anti-U.S. feelings in several of the major Muslim countries, but we also talk about Muslims being depicted as violent and extremists in the U.S., so both sides.
Well, I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding on both sides. I think what didn't help in particular was when President Obama went to Cairo in 2009, shortly after he was elected, and he gave his famous Cairo speech, wanting to reach out to the Muslim world. Unfortunately, I don't necessarily think that this was very productive. He attempted to portray himself as the antithesis to President Bush and President Bush's policies. However, I think there's a disconnect between this. It's not necessarily the President Bush's policies necessarily, it's American values. And for example, the First Amendment and how the First Amendment is used in the United States with this video. It's offensive, but yet there's nothing illegal about it. And so I think there's a little bit of disconnect on both sides here.
Do you agree it's American values and not the policies? Because a lot of people around the world say it's not the values, it's the policies.
Well, I honestly believe that there are a lot of Muslims who believe in freedom of speech, and they do not revenge themselves whenever they are insulted by this kind of movies by attacking and killing the U.S. ambassador, who, by the way, has absolutely nothing to do with the production of the movie. They understand it very, very well. We should not make Muslims an unintelligible mob. You know, Muslims are very, very sophisticated. They do understand, and I'm sure that tomorrow's Friday prayers all over the Muslim world, we will see more condemnation of the attacks against U.S. citizens than support to those terrorists who conducted these kind of acts.
And Kamran, do you agree with the two guests? Since you traveled to a region of the world, particularly Middle East and Pakistan and Afghanistan, where a lot of people say, it's the policies, we don't mind the values, it's the policies. What do you think?
There are two things here, Aisha. Yes, most people will tell you that we have no problem with the values, and we're really upset at the way the United States treats our part of the world. So that's the first point, and you're absolutely right. That is the predominant sentiment across the region. But there's a nuance here. When it comes to values, there is a distinction, and the distinction is that. I'll give you an example. So, you know, democracy is a universal value, and I believe that even Muslims, basically accept it as such, that it is something that is desired. But the question is, what kind of democracy? You know, the experiences, the historical, cultural, civilizational experiences of the Muslim world are very different from those of the West. The Muslim world didn't undergo the sequence of Renaissance, Reformation, Enlightenment, and the rise of secularism and democracy. That's not the path that the Muslim world has taken. Will it may have its own path in the future, especially in the context of the Arab Spring, but that remains to be seen. So the way democracy, the way freedom of expression, the way the values that we cherish in the West, they're not exactly received in the same way in the Muslim world. In other words, if there is going to be a democracy, if there is going to be some form of secularism in the Muslim world, or the adoption of values of civil protest and freedom of expression, it'll have to be in keeping with the historical and evolutionary experiences of those countries, and even in that region, it's not going to be uniform. Okay. So, for example, the Islamism of Turkey is very different from Egypt, and that is different from Tunisia, and so on and so forth.
Okay, so Imam Jory, I want you to comment on this, whether it's values versus American policies, and also you as a Muslim Imam sitting in U.S., what would you add to it, and how do you reach out to Muslims across the world? What do you say to them?
Well, I think Imran is right on point. There are some values which are universal. The concept of shura, mutual consultation, is a value that's held by many Muslims. At the same time, there are policies of the U.S. government that are not in keeping with even the concepts of democracy and freedom. And so it's a mixed bag. What I will say is that what's not getting the coverage are things like the demonstration or vigil that was held in Benghazi by Libyans who were praying for the families of the U.S. ambassador and his staff. That's the kind of story that if we projected it to other parts of the Muslim community, Muslim world, it would have the opposite effect. There are people who are seizing upon this tragedy in order to advance a feudal idea about what it means to be Muslim, what it means to live in a Muslim majority country. We shouldn't allow them to hijack this moment, but to begin to project those other images of engagement, of the cooperation that we've seen in Libya by many factions within that country, grateful for the U.S. intervention and its support of their growing democracy.
Okay, so then I come to the next very important question, which is, Morgan, do you think that the media is partly responsible for showing one kinds of images and not the other? And as you hear a lot of these people saying, well, a lot of Muslims are, keeping vigils and praying for the families of those killed, condemning attacks, we don't see those images a lot on U.S. media.
Right, and I think we actually have seen some of these pictures. I've seen a lot of these pictures posted, and as an American, I find this very, very heartening. There are a lot of people in Libya and in Egypt that the United States can work with and should work with. We should not let these attacks, undermine the relationship with these countries. We have a lot of options, and we should continue to work with those that want to work with us. I think, if the media is guilty of anything, it's just reporting facts or what they believe are facts too quickly. As we've said repeatedly, there is just so much we still have to know, or we still have to find out. And I think it's going to be some time before we actually do get the facts straight.
Ali, we're talking about two different kinds of thinkings as we've discussed here. There's as Morgan said, values of freedom of speech. Yes, you find an act reprehensible, but it falls under freedom of speech. But in some countries, freedom of speech has limits. So how do these two societies interact with each other?
Well, you see, there is, of course, also a limit to freedom of speech here in America. If you feel insulted, you can start a legal process against the producer of the movie. It is the choice that you have in a civilized country. And I fundamentally believe that the majority of Muslims also believe that this should be how things work in the Muslim countries and Muslim states. And therefore, I genuinely believe that those who are the enemies of the United States, those who are the enemies of values of freedom and democracy, are also the enemies of the Muslim majorities, because the Muslim majorities, as we have seen all over the Muslim world, are demanding democracy and will develop their own concepts and their own limits to how freedom of speech should be organized and how it should be practiced.
Okay, thank you. Now, Kamran, as a strategist, as somebody who looks at the security sides of things, is this a storm that's going to blow over, or is this something that you see will leave a lasting impact?
I think we're in sort of a wave that's been going on for decades, and this is the latest one, and it's complicated by the Arab Spring and the realities produced by the ouster of longtime dictators. In the past, you go back to the Satanic versus Salman Rushdie controversy and the cartoon controversy, we didn't see a whole lot of outpour. We had a rising, and then it calmed down. It largely because the people were the culture of protest and demonstrations wasn't there in the Arab world and in other parts of the Islamic world. Now you have a situation where, according to some experts, the so-called fear factor is gone. So everybody is sort of happy to protest, and and in the case of Libya, everybody has guns, and then they're willing to use them. And so it all depends on how things move forward, how it's managed by the various authorities in different countries, and how the United States responds. And so it just could enlarge itself into a bigger crisis, again, depending upon how it's managed. But I don't think, even if this episode, surrounding the unfortunate death of Ambassador Stevens, even if it is brought to calm, we're still going to see an eruption somewhere down the road on another issue. So there won't be any shortage of issues, and we're going to see a repeat of these incidents, and for a very long time to come, because social evolution takes time, and we're not talking years here, we're talking decades.
Okay, so very quickly, we have the last 2 minutes, so 20 seconds and 20 seconds. Do you think the Arab countries are doing, the presidents have all sent out condemning the attacks, the Yemeni president, the Lebanese president, even the Egyptian president now. Do you think they're handling it well?
The United States surely appreciates these apologies and words of condolences. Absolutely. I think moving forward, though, we need to look to the future and what's going to happen next. As has been said, there's no shortage of issues for people to take to the streets about. This is going to take generations, really. And I think moving forward, we see the ripple effects of the Arab Spring throughout the Sahel in Africa, throughout the continent. And I think
I'm sorry, since we just have like a few seconds left, do you think it's being handled well? Very quickly.
There is going to be Friday prayer sermons tomorrow, and I hope that those responsible leaders in the world of Islam will show the world that Islam is the religion of mercy and peace.
And peace. Okay, thank you. We'll end at this. I have to thank all of my guests, Morgan Roach, Ali Alfone, Kamran Bukhari, and Imam Johri for joining me. And I want you to leave your comments about this show on our Facebook page, Access Point with AT. Join us next Thursday at the same time and leave your questions and comments on our Facebook page. Thank you and good night.